Hello everyone, today I wanted to make a quick review over these sweet little earphones right here. These are the SoundPEATS, that's the name of the brand, the SoundPEATS Air5 Lite. I got sent these lovely earphones by the nice people at SoundPEATS, but obviously every opinion in this video is completely my own. It's not sponsored by them and they have no input over anything. But also real quick, I know that the camera quality in my videos is fluctuating, and that's because I'm trying to use my webcam and then sometimes my phone and sometimes my DSLR. I'm upgrading stuff. I'm trying to get this to get better, so just give me a chance on that one. Anyway, the SoundPEATS Air5 Lite are obviously designed after the AirPods from 2016 and 2019. We're not going to kid ourselves. The design is very similar, except it has this really interesting shine right here. As you can see, the metal bar, or whatever you want to call it. Yep, there you go. That's my screen. Anyways, these are some really interestingly shaped earphones. Now, obviously, if you're used to the AirPods, this may come across as a very generic design to you, but I've never really had this design as something that I'm used to, mostly because I really need some foam tips to be in place whenever I'm wearing things like this. I never, ever liked this design, but this was somewhat of an exception. I genuinely found these fairly comfortable. Now, as a person who's really not used to things that don't have foam on them, I obviously didn't find these too comfortable at first, especially with my left ear for whatever reason. But overall, I think that they just became really comfortable afterwards because of the way that they don't actually go into like inside of your ear how the ones with foam tips take. These ones just kind of sit in your ear very flush, very comfortably, and something about that is very fascinating to me because whenever I wear these earphones, it's such a great combination of just sound isolation and also hearing everything at the same time. It's like having a transparency mode turned on all the time. Now, obviously, these do not have active noise canceling on, which if that's an important thing to you, these will not provide an incredibly high level of canceling, but what they will provide is a high resolution audio. At least that's what the box advertises. We're going to get to the sound in a bit. So when it comes to comfort on these earphones, it's really comfortable in the sense that it just kind of sits there and you kind of forget that it's there, and doing more activities at home and just generally speaking doing more activities in general means that they're not going to cause a pressure buildup inside of your ears, as opposed to some of the earphones, especially ones with memory foam like the latest Sony WF-XM5, which I also have and I also used, and I'm not going to compare them much when it comes to sound, when it comes to comfort, because the price difference is almost 6 to 7 times, but the comfort on these is quite good, especially if you're used to design. If you're not, it might take you some time, but I found them quite comfortable. Now, I don't know how much can one person say about the build quality of the earbud itself, but what I can say is it has a fair bit of weight, and the weight feels pretty well distributed. You're not going to find these breaking very quickly. They're built well. They do aspire comfort and they do aspire confidence. That's what I can say. They're not tanks by any means, but I can probably trust throwing these and just dropping them, and it should be fine. I haven't tried to drop them yet, and I don't plan to, but they feel good is what I will say. The quality and the build of the box is also pretty interesting. It snaps into place in such a comfortable fashion that I just enjoy so much. It's slightly uncomfortable to open in one hand, if that makes sense. Like if I hold it like this, I mean, right, like I can do that, right? But then like you kind of have to use two hands sometimes unless you get used to it. Maybe I'm nitpicking a little too much. The box that's protected, there's a small little LED that shows the fact that they're charged, and also has their little slogan right here that says, "Hear your imagination." I have no idea what that's supposed to mean. There's also a charging port down here, which is thank God a USB-C, but that's a bit of a standard. I mean, come on, it's 2025. There is also a pairing button down here, but I didn't ever have to use it, so yeah. Works well, I guess. There's a logo behind, and I guess that's it for the box itself. Feels pretty good. It's not gonna drop. It doesn't have any creaks. It doesn't have any sounds when I squish on it, and it feels quite good. So I guess that's a good thing. Now I can spend the next 10-15 minutes talking about other things within this headphone, but this is an audio channel, and what I care about is the sound quality. So how is the sound quality on these earphones? Well, to make it a bit simplified, this is very incredibly V-shaped in a bit of a weird way. But it sounds good. I'll start by saying that it sounds good. But what I will say is it's not trying whatsoever to be balanced, which for some people that's a good thing. But for me, I have to say that out loud. The bass on these earphones is honestly impressive. Not that it's accurate. It is not accurate whatsoever to what the original song is probably intending, but it's loud and it's powerful, and honestly, it's somewhat clean. And that is great. I'm not saying that it's not clean. I'm just saying it's like somewhat clean. No, it is clean. It sounds good. It's just that it sometimes kind of overwhelms the song, but the mids and the highs are also good sounding enough to the point where it feels like the bass is clean and the bass is not making everything else sound muddy. It's just kind of covering it gently, if that makes sense. I understand that these are weird terms to use, but yeah, the mids on these earphones are fine. They're not the greatest, they're not the most detailed, especially people's vocals. I tried to listen to a bunch of Kendrick Lamar, a bunch of the Beatles stuff and stuff like that. You're going to hear the vocals, they're going to be there, of course. They're going to still work perfectly fine, and they're going to have a bunch of details, but they're not going to be the most forward thing in the universe. I found that earphones like the Samsung Buds Pro have a bit more mid, a little bit more mid than these ones, and something like the Sony WF-XM5 has a bunch more mids than what these have. The treble is obviously very nice as well. There's a bunch of hits. The hi-hats fit well, but here's a thing that I wanted to actually note out real quick. The fact that these earphones have no foam on them, while it is a choice. It's an interesting choice, and it fits some, it doesn't fit others. What I will say is that this means that the earphone has such a big, drastic difference in sound and signature. It depends on how deep it is into your ear canal. Sometimes I feel like they're almost gonna fall out, so I adjust them a little bit more, and I feel like the bass just got increased by no less than 10 to 15 decibels. A lot of bass, which is interesting because the way that they kind of just sit flushly in your ears makes them sound fairly balanced. But the moment you try to push them a little bit in there, the bass kind of drowns everything, which I don't know if that's by design or if that's to be expected. Oh yeah, and also because they don't have foam ear tips, they tend to have a bunch more bleed than other normal, I guess, earphones that I'm used to. And while that is a little bit of a bad thing, I mean, if you're going on walks, you'll be fine. If you happen to be on public transportation, other people around you or people who are very close to you, they're gonna hear this. But going back to the sound quality, how do these fare for the price? And speaking of the price that was advertised when I first got the email to review these was $50 or 50 euros, which when I got them, I didn't feel like it was justified. It was fine. It didn't feel like a very high price. But SoundPEATS then told me that there's a 30% off if you use the code SP Air5 Lite, and a 30% off the Amazon that I will have in the description. If you buy through that link and use that code, you're gonna get 30% off, which is honestly very justifiable. I mean, if you get something like this for 35 bucks or 35 euros, I actually do recommend these. I do like the sound. Now keep in mind there are a bunch of people that this specific earphone might not be the greatest to, and who do I think should buy these earphones? Now, if you're looking for something that just kind of sits in your ear, something that you can still hear the background but also rejects a bunch of sound, say you're studying at a library where you might still need to hear the background every once in a while, or something that just doesn't build up a lot of pressure inside of your ears, these might be a great option for this. But if you're gonna buy these for something like travels, for something like public transportation, for places where you need to have some white noise going on and you need to really pay attention to stuff, then these might not be the greatest option. And I think you could already probably figure that out by the fact that they don't have foam tips. I mean, that's kind of a very important thing. They also don't have active noise canceling, but overall the sound is quite good. It's not balanced for critical listening, but it does produce a pretty enjoyable sound with plenty of detail. The latency is obviously just a standard Bluetooth latency, so unless you're a casual gamer, these might not be great, but if you don't mind a tiny bit of latency for the convenience that this uses, then you should be fine. When it comes to connectivity, they've been connecting fine. They've been very stable. They have an app, a SoundPEATS app, but I couldn't get around to using it. It's not that convenient. It also doesn't have great ratings on Google, but I like my things plug and play, so these have a bunch of good plug and play. And when it comes to the touch controls, if I do have to say, they're fairly responsive. They have not made any issues or have any slow response to them. I quite like these for the price. 35 bucks, quite nice. But yeah, that's it. That'll be my review of these earphones. I hope you like this video. If you decide to buy them, there will be a link in the description. This video is not sponsored. They just send this to me. Everything in this video was my complete honest opinion. I hope you have a wonderful day. Goodbye.